So today we have gathered here to study the text called 7 Points on Mind Training. This teaching on mind training and also the teaching on Lamrim, the great stages of the path, are kind of special in the Tibetan tradition. It is not that these sources are not found in the Buddha or the great Indian and Indian teachers, but around the 11th century, when lots of degeneration in the Buddhist Dharma practice took place, then the Tibetan teachers, especially great teachers like Atisha, was invited go bed majab na dixer yan di bijadang di do. So Atisha was invited so that he is able to help restore the purity of the Buddhism that flourished in Tibet. I mean, I'm not a historian, but if you do more study, it looks like that then at that time the Tibetan teachers were concerned not only in storing the Buddhism there, the degenerating Buddhism there, but also to perhaps rearrange it in a systematic way and adopt certain special methods and techniques so that people are able to easily understand the teaching and receive the benefit of those teachings. So Lamrim and the mind training, the stages of the path and mind training tradition came primarily from that perspective. Now, when we talk about mind training, it primarily means training the mind in positive ways of life and thinking. And especially here, it talks about training the mind towards bodhicitta, the altruistic mind, to enlightenment. So that is the main focus. This is important because if you try to catch hold of essence of the Buddha's teaching, it primarily boils down to a few things. One, the Buddha has very clearly shown that all sentient beings wanted happiness, not wanted suffering. More importantly, greedy as we are, we want the maximum, the most long-lasting peace and happiness, and do not want even a tiny bit of suffering, even the bite of a mosquito we don't want. And Buddha saw that very clearly. If you try to put it in the modern context, today we all say we are very busy and nobody knows why we are so busy. So whatever you bring forth as a reason for your being very busy, but at the end of the day, the answer will be, I am busy so that I am able to get some kind of more reliable peace and happiness. But the question is, are we getting it? And even more pertinent question than this one is the very basic question which Buddha saw and which we are not seeing still, until there is an earthquake or something like that, which you already experienced today. Huh? So it's a good suffering is introduction to happiness, as we say in Buddhism. So this kind of obstacles, hindrances, misfortunes are actually great teachers. Therefore, many of the great mind training teachers, they say, suffering is the one, suffering is like a broom which will sweep clean your past negative deeds. And misfortunes are your best teachers. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us to wake up. Very difficult for us to wake up. Our eyes are, of course, fully open, but we are almost like ready to jump from a cliff while having the eye wide open. So that's why we spend the whole life from the childhood until we die seemingly doing something. Everybody busy, as I said, but achieving hardly anything. Because we are looking for long-lasting peace and happiness in the wrong source. So sooner or later, the reality will show its ugly face. And then we start experiencing all kinds of sufferings. So therefore, the Buddha was primarily saying, wake up. Wake up. It is very interesting that we don't know even sometimes we don't know even the very basic things, which I always tell people that, in fact, not talk about the Buddha, but even when the child was born, the first thing that the child does is crying and not laughing. And I talk about this all the time, because for me that's a very important teaching. So the first thing that the child does after coming into this world is crying and not smiling or not laughing. If the first thing that the child does is laughing and smiling, everybody will say, how come? This must be a devil or a Buddha reincarnation, something which is very unusual. So what we do is crying. So basically we came into this world with this slogan, that look, I'm suffering. And by that slogan the child is saying, look, when I am suffering, I need somebody's unconditional love. The child came crying and suffering, expecting somebody's unconditional, genuine love, because at that point the child has nothing to give back. That's the reality. So that itself clearly shows that in our life we need to show that unconditional love and unconditional compassion, unconditional affection towards everybody, whether you know them or not know them, because of the fact that they are suffering, they are having problems. But again, unfortunately, we are very oblivious to the multifold sufferings that we are being afflicted. And we are quite happy with very superficial, fleeting pleasures and get completely engrossed and lost with that. And there is no time to find out about the reality of the different levels of suffering. And if you don't have that knowledge about the different levels of suffering, you will never make an attempt to remove these different levels of suffering. So that's the tragedy, that's the problem. So when we hear about suffering, we immediately think about headache or stomachache, diarrhea or dysentery, whatever, those things. The subtle levels of suffering, we have no idea. So therefore we continue to cling on to the contaminated happiness, which is basically suffering. I'll buy a big house, I'll be happy. I marry to this man, this woman, I will be happy. I go to America, I'll be happy. So again, the anchor that we use for our long-lasting happiness is again unreliable sources. So we don't get happiness wherever you go, with whomever you live, because the source itself is wrong. So therefore the Buddha's teaching is basically saying, look, if you want, that's why it's so important to say, to repeatedly tell oneself that I want happiness, I do not want suffering, basic things like that. Then you need to repeat repeatedly that not only I want happiness, but I want long-lasting happiness and peace. You need to remind yourself these basic things. I don't want even the tiniest bit of suffering. But this will lead to the next step. Okay, if you want that long-lasting happiness and peace, from where are you going to get it? From your friends? Impossible. We are now talking about big thing, long-lasting peace and happiness. Are you going to get it from your best friends, not ordinary friends, but best friends? Think with a cool mind. Impossible. That's the reality. Will you get long-lasting peace and happiness by moving to a relatively richer country? Impossible. We go to America, Americans come here. So from where are you going to get it? So therefore the Buddha's teaching is saying that if you want that long-lasting peace and happiness, then look for the right cause, the right source, not go to the wrong direction. If the gold is here, and if you search here, you will not get gold. You have to go to the right direction. So similarly, the fact, not only what Buddha taught and what many eminent thinkers said, but if we ourselves think carefully, and I have asked this question to many places, to many people, to many countries, that do you think you will get the long-lasting peace and happiness from external sources, name, fame, money, and so forth? And interestingly, everybody says, no, sir. No, sir. Many countries I've asked this question. Quite recently, I was in Russia. I went to several places and I asked this very basic question, and everybody is saying, no. So therefore, at the end of the day, that long-lasting peace and happiness has to come from within, not from outside. That one has to realize. This is so because the so-called peace and happiness is a state of mind. You can get some benefit by having money, but money is not peace. You can get some peace and happiness by having a good friend, but that is not peace. Peace is state of your mind. And how can you get that peace? You can get that peace if you understand the way things are, the reality. And what is the reality? Reality most of us don't want to see. Hindi में बोलता है ना, सच्चा कड़वा होता है. In English we call it, truth is bitter. So people don't want to see the truth. Like for example, in Buddhism we talk so much about death. And who wants to hear? And some people even think that one reason that Buddhism disappeared from India is Buddha was talking about the reality. And people don't want to hear reality. They want to follow some ceremony, some rituals. Praying somebody up there, do some nice ritual and play some symbols and then think all my problems will be solved, all my sins are washed, Buddha spoke about this bitter truth, death, aging, sickness, suffering. And who wants to think about that? Even in Tibetan society, we are supposed to be following Buddhism, but even in the Tibetan society, if somebody talks about death, huh? It's a bad omen, don't talk about death. Death is a reality. Suffering is a reality, aging is a reality. Every day, every minute, right from the first moment of the birth, aging has started. It's not that you start aging after you cross 60. After the first moment of the birth, aging has started. And then in between sickness, separation, not meeting those who you want to meet, and meeting those who you do not want to meet. As countless sufferings and problems are there. But if you had some understanding about this reality, if your mind is prepared, you will not be, caught by surprise. You will not be shocked. You will be able to say, okay, yes. Earthquake, okay, yeah, Dharamsala is zone number 5. Earthquake, zone number 5. So it's nothing strange. We are living in zone number 5. But then people don't want to think about these things. When they construct the house, nobody cares. They'll construct a house which they have to spend less money by this and their means, and then they construct a cheaper house, and then the earthquake comes, collapses, as it has happened in Nepal. As simple as that. If there is a likelihood of experiencing those problems, then right in the beginning you need to prepare. There's no point, no use worrying later, you see. Some लोग ऊँगल ना ना खेबाई, जो बच्ची सुचिए ना लुम्बियो तास. It's a Tibetan saying which says, if you think in advance, then you are wise. If you regret later, you are foolish, you are stupid. So that's why Buddha is saying that right from the beginning, don't turn a blind eye on the reality. Accept them. Impermanence. He's talking about impermanence. Who can deny that? Everything is changing. Impermanence. Which does not only mean death and decay, but it also means the possibility to become better. Impermanence doesn't carry the connotation of death and destruction alone. It also gives you that flexibility, the possibility to change, to become better. So once you understand that meaning of impermanence, you will make every effort to do the best thing, because you are able to, there's a possibility for you to change, there is a room for you to change. And similarly, you will also think about death and destruction, and you prepare for that. And when the actual reality comes, you are not caught by surprise. But it's very difficult to convince us. Very difficult. There's a Tibetan saying, "Ausidam tokumachis." That means don't make friendship with okay. Don't make friendship with okay. You say, oh, maybe today, okay, no problem. Tomorrow also you don't pay. Oh, okay. Then finally you are on your deathbed. Still you think, okay. It's not okay. You have not prepared. If you are flying to London or New York today and having not bought any ticket, how can you say, okay? You have to buy the ticket, confirm it, make sure that the travel is smooth, you see. Even for such, travels, you need to prepare. So therefore, whether you believe in afterlife or not, at least for this life, even for this life, understanding the reality and trying to live in harmony with reality is the most important thing. So therefore, in this precious text, mind training, 7 points mind training, it primarily talks about, most of the texts, Mahayana Buddhist texts, they primarily talk about cultivating the 2 minds, conventional bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta. Most of the texts, it's important for you to know the essence. Conventional bodhicitta means bodhicitta, which means the mind wishing to achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Ultimate bodhicitta means not bodhicitta, but it basically means wisdom realizing emptiness. So these 2 are the most important subject matter. Conventional bodhicitta, or the mind wishing to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, is the best of all the positive minds that you can ever think about. A mind which aspires to become Buddha, to benefit all sentient beings. There cannot be a gift superior than this one. One is asking for the highest state of Buddhahood, not for one's own vacation and relaxation, but to benefit all sentient beings. It's not talking about becoming a billionaire and distributing money and benefiting all sentient beings. It's talking about achieving a state where you gain that state of omniscient mind, where you are able to teach people what is good for them temporarily and what is good for them in the long run. You'll be able to show them the perfect path. So that is the best way of helping other people, because people don't know the best path. Best gift. There cannot be a mind better than this. Then support to this mind is the wisdom realizing emptiness. That means the wisdom that sees the ultimate mode of existence of all phenomena. The ultimate mode of existence of all phenomena is they have dependent existence, interdependent origination as we call it. Now, this is very sudden and very profound, and of course we'll get some time to explain this later on, but right at the outset I want to get some idea. Because the reason that the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives has organized these evening sessions, 5 days every month for the whole year, is so that we get some benefit. We are not organizing this to count it as one of our activities, not for that purpose. So that's why I made it a point to distribute both the Tibetan and the English version of this text, so that the Tibetans or the English speakers, if you are familiar with both the language, then you can compare and study. And then those of who are more interested, then you should buy the commentaries. There are so many commentaries in Tibetan and English also. Read those commentaries. And then ask questions to others. Then try to practice it. Hearing, thinking, and meditation. Hearing is important. If you don't hear, you will have no knowledge what to do. But that is not enough. What is even more important than hearing is personally analyzing the meaning of what you have heard and develop conviction within your mind. Oh, I heard about this teaching, I thought about it, this really seems to be true. You need to develop this conviction. Because if you don't have the conviction, you will not make a move. And then the third is called meditation. That means the topic on which you have developed conviction, you must make your mind habituated with that virtue, that knowledge, so that it becomes a part of yourself. For example, let us say bodhicitta. You have no idea what is bodhicitta. Then you hear from others, bodhicitta means a mind wishing to become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. So at least you get that idea. But that idea that you got is just received knowledge. It's not that something you had figured out. You heard from somebody and you got that idea. That is received knowledge. Received knowledge is important, but that will not be able to bring about genuine transformation within yourself. You need to do the homework. And that's why the Buddha said, I've shown the path of liberation to you. Liberation is up to you. The Buddha said, I'm like a class teacher. I can give you homework. But if you don't do the homework, you will fail. So most of us, first of all, most of us don't even go to the teaching. Forget about doing the homework. So we're even in kindergarten or whatever. We don't even go to school, something like that. And there are some few people who go to receive some teachings, that's it. Oh, I went and received such and such teachings. You leave it at that. You personally don't think about it, analyze about it. Because you don't do that, you are unable to develop that conviction. Yes, this is true. Yes, this is not true, whatever. So through personal analysis, you need to develop this conviction. Now sometimes the second group of people who hear and then also think and reflect and develop this conviction, then they think, yes, I know now. I know the meaning of bodhicitta. I thought about it. Not only I heard from the teacher, but I thought about it. So I know the meaning. I can explain. But still it has not sunk deep into their nature of the mind. So therefore, the third, most important thing is meditation. I normally give this example of a person looking for water, who is thirsty and looking for water. He is to hear where is water available. But that will not solve his thirst. He is to go to reach near the water. But even that will not solve his problem. He has to actually drink water. Then his thirst can be solved. So similarly, we have to hear, think, meditate, means get habituated with these positive ways of thinking. Just as we get habituated with bad ways of thinking, addiction. All of us are full of addiction. Negative emotions, we are all addicted in negative emotion. Anger, jealousy, hatred, we are addicted in that. But fortunately or unfortunately in the West we don't talk about those kind of addictions. We talk about alcoholism and things like that. But from Buddhist viewpoint, the negative emotions, we are addicted. That's why we keep on doing the same thing again and again. Despite the teachers and others saying this is not good for you, we keep on doing that. That's called addiction. So the Buddhist teaching is saying that, okay, you are addicted in this, it's going to bring a lot of problem, come out of it. And instead of getting addicted to the negative emotions, get habituated with the positive emotions. That is called meditation. Meditation is not sitting in a corner, closing your eye, and not only meditation, but all these Buddhist practices are not feel-good practices. They are not there just to make you, like it's not like taking hashish, You take hashish or LSD and then for a short time you are in heaven, You use the word high, high or heaven, whatever, And then after that, you're back in the same familiar world. Should not be like that. That's what the teachers say, that you should really hear about these good teachings. Think about it. And then make it a part of your life. Get habituated with it so that compassion comes automatically. Loving kindness comes automatically. But most of us who study, we are good in talking about love, talking about compassion, but when it comes to actually doing it, we are not there. That clearly showing you are not habituated with that. You don't have the conviction about those things. So it takes time. It's not easy. But not easy does not mean that you cannot do. We can all do. If we make at least a little bit of effort, especially to start with in the beginning. Beginning is the most difficult part. Because beginning, first of all, when we talk about moving from the negative emotion to the positive emotion, we are talking about change. And people are scared of change. Change, oh no. It's better for me to remain in this world which is full of suffering. Of course, suffering, but still I'm familiar. Negative emotions, okay, very bad, but still I'm familiar. So I want to stay in that familiar world. I don't want to move from this familiar world to the unfamiliar world of compassion, loving kindness. We get scared, you see. That's why it's very difficult for people to change. Leba changu se dukh char. Very difficult to change. So therefore in the beginning you need to really make a little bit of effort. Then you will be able to taste the flavor, little bit flavor of those practices. Then gradually it will become your habit. And if you are able to make it a part of your way of life, your habit, that habit not only stays in this life, but goes into the next world. Because habit formation is a state of mind. And it's the mind that goes to the next world, not the body. So you can easily imagine that if you have a mind with those kind of positive habits, then however many lives are there, you will be fine. Because you have those positive emotions, positive habits. So therefore from here you can clearly see that Buddhist practices are to be done by the mind, not by the senses. Now again look here, ordinarily most of the practices are limited to the physical and the verbal. Doing some prayer, okay, it's good, but it may not be very effective. Then going around the temple, doing some prostrations, because these are something that you can feel that you are doing, And you can also show others, look how good I am. I'm going around the temple. Look how good I am. I'm chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, So you want to do those things where people will, clap their hands and say, oh, you're a good person, You want to show that, you see. So again, your practice becomes a show business. And as I was saying, that the real Dharma practice is the practice that is done by one's own mind. Because at the end of the day, the one that goes to the next world is your mind, not your body, not your speech. Okay? Especially the very subtle mind which goes to the next world. So you need to, therefore you need to go deeper, reflect, and activate and involve that subtlemost mind and make an impact on that. Then even not only day but even in the night you will start doing those practices. Even when you are sleeping, it is possible to have these practices coming automatically. So this is how we can make a fruitful journey to the next world. So therefore, these teachings like mind training, Shantideva in his Bodhicharyavatara says that in short, if you do not know the secret of the mind, even if you aspire to have happiness and to shun suffering, you will end up wandering aimlessly, unless you know the secret of the mind. A very eminent Indian Buddhist scholar, Geshe Lhakdor, I think somewhere in the 8th century or something like that, I don't remember exactly. In one of his compositions also, he says that this naturally born mind is the most powerful one. Wherever you are born, in the 6 states of existence in the samsara, wherever you are born, the most powerful king or queen is your mind. All the magic, mystery, or all the achievements that we see today in the field of religion, field of science, field of technology, these are all product of mind. It's planning, it's thinking. You see? So therefore, if you are able to use this mind properly, you will be happy. Not really in the next life, but also in this life. Whatever comes, you will be happy. Do you think it is possible to remain happy, whatever comes? It is possible. It's not easy, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's possible. Because after all, everything is state of your mind. Your mind is the conjurer, the magician which is playing the trick all the time. This person is good, this person is not bad. Even without any knowledge about these people, you will say, oh, this person I like, very good. This person I don't like. The mind has already started playing the tricks. You see? So it's the mind which is giving the designation. So therefore, what the Buddha is saying is, look, much of the suffering that you are experiencing is a suffering that you are suffering unnecessarily. Meaning that there is a cure, there is a way, there is a path, but you don't make an effort in sitting there and you're suffering. It's unnecessary suffering. Much of the suffering is unnecessary suffering, unwanted suffering. So if you change your attitude, change your perspective a little bit, a big percentage of the sufferings and problems in your life can be dissolved like this. And these sufferings primarily come from negative emotions. Negative emotions come from distorted view. So that's why distorted view means the view of the mind. The mind makes stories, exaggerates, denies, and because of that you get all these problems. So therefore, here in this text, what we are going to talk about is, one, not just get obsessed with yourself alone. Think about all other sentient beings, bodhicitta, for their long-lasting peace and happiness. Two, all sufferings, problems come from confusion, distorted viewpoint, which is called the view that sees everything as having absolute, independent, concrete existence, which is not there. Like, for example, when you fancy somebody, oh, this person is so good, 100% amazing. Your projection. So when you project and see that person or that object 100% good, then your next thing that you develop is attachment, obsession with that object, that person. And that will make you get stuck there. Get stuck there. Getting stuck in some object means making yourself immobile. Sometimes I give the example like this microphone. If I like this microphone and say, oh, this microphone is so good, I want to have this one. And before I developed that attachment, my hands were free. So when I developed this great obsession and attachment with this microphone, then I say, I really want to have it. Now my hands are not free. Something like that, you see. You get stuck with that. So if you get stuck with something, how can you get freedom? Okay? So therefore, the wisdom that sees the reality in its manifold levels and the wish to become Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. This is primarily taught in this beautiful text called the 7-point mind training. Root verses of 7-point mind training. This is written by the Venerable Geshe Chekhawa. So we'll know a little bit more about Geshe Chekhawa later on. So first we'll talk a little bit about the authenticity of the source of this text, a little bit of the history and the great features of this text. So this is explained in the first 2 lines, which reads, these instructions are the essence of the nectar. They have been passed down from Silingba. So in general, all the countless teachings that the Buddha gave, which is known as the 84,000 classes of Buddha's teachings, or the 3 turning of the wheels of the teaching, all these teachings will finally boil down to one point, that is how to put an end to the misconception about the self. As I explained earlier, misconception of the self means seeing the self and the phenomena as having inherent, absolute, independent existence. And the other point of the focus of this great teachings is how to make one's mind habituated with a sense of responsibility, of helping others, of benefiting others. So all the teachings of the Buddhas are basically included in these 2 points. How to eliminate the misconception about the reality and how to make one's mind habituated with the sense of responsibility and helping others. So in other words, a fortunate being, so today we are a fortunate being. I think it's also important to know these facts. You are fortunate, I'm fortunate. At least for a short time we got this time to sit together and talk about this text. It's fortunate. We need to know this. Don't take it lightly or don't take it for granted. Not many people get such an opportunity. There's one reason that I also try to share a little bit what I know. Because on my own I may be doing, I don't know what, just wasting time, you see. But when I plan to do something like that, at least I get a time for myself to prepare and read a little bit and maybe benefit others a little bit, you see. So that's important. So we are fortunate. So those fortunate beings who wants to achieve that omniscient state of the Buddhahood, omniscient state of the Buddhahood. Of course, there will be many questions. We don't have time to answer all the questions, but there will be many questions like, is it possible that somebody really become omniscient? Somebody who knows everything, is it possible? We can ask all those questions. We may not be able to answer it so easily, but at least we can understand two things, the differences between the body and the mind. With this sluggish body, however much training you give, however much exercise you do, there is a limit, there is a point beyond which you cannot go. The world's #1 gold medalist, let us say, in long jump, the world's #1, he may be #1 in the world. And let us say this person undergoes more training so that he is able to jump further. But there will never be a time when we will be able to say he's the world's #1 gold medalist in long jump, and now these days he is jumping from one mountain to another mountain. I don't think it is possible. Because the basis on which you are giving the training, the body itself, is a material entity. So there is a limit beyond which it cannot go. Just like boiling the water, you boil the water, keep on boiling, then it will change into vapor or whatever, There's a limit beyond which it cannot go. But look at the mind. Unless you become completely omniscient like a Buddha, probably there's no time when you can say, oh, my mind is full now. The world's greatest thinkers, educationists, scholars, whatever, if you ask this question to them, how much you know? Oh, very small. Einstein said that. I know what I know is very small. And even for the small knowledge that I've got, people really are dumbfounded. Oh, how did he know about all these things? So there's no limit. So therefore, at least this indicates to the possibilities of training your mind to a limitless state. Okay? How many gigabytes, I don't know. Too many. So coming from the Buddha, the Buddha's teaching came through three kind of systems of three pioneers. But all these three systems, the focus of all these three systems, true to the Buddha's teaching, is how to get rid of this sickness of the 84,000 types of afflictive emotions and the birth, aging, sickness and death, and all kind of sufferings that comes as a result of these negative emotions. So the nectar-like teaching, which can do away with all these sufferings and problems, is the wisdom, understanding, emptiness, and the bodhicitta. So that's what I think he said in the next line. Oh, sorry, the first line, as I said, these instructions are the essence of the nectar. So the nectar here is the bodhicitta. Just as in the case of ordinary nectar, the Sanskrit word for this nectar is called amrit. Amrit. A is a negative word. Mirit is death. Non-death, state of non-death. So it is said that when a physician well-versed in preparing the medicines, having identified the sickness, and comes up with that concoction or that proper combination of different ingredients, and then he is able to give a medicine which will liberate oneself from sickness, death, and so forth. And especially it talks about a kind of amrit, which is so powerful that just by smelling the smell of that nectar, even the most stubborn poisons can be removed and eliminated. Likewise, that in the Bodhisattva path, there is not only this method to achieve liberation, but also to become Bodhisattva and then gradually become a Buddha, a state where there is no death. So therefore this is compared to that most important and powerful nectar. So here the nectar is the precious bodhicitta. And the tradition of these great pioneers came down, as I said, the three kind of traditions. And Lama Selingpa Swandipa was a great teacher from Indonesia. And it is said that he possessed all these three traditions. He was like the confluence of these traditions. And Atisha, having heard about this, traveled from India to Indonesia, which took him, I think, 6 months or something on the boat in those days. He nearly died on many occasions because of the rough sea. So Atisha received this teaching. And Atisha had countless students, and the prominent one was Domtum Gyavenjungne. Domtum, a great lay practitioner and great teacher. And he had many accomplished students, and out of which the one most renowned was Putowa, the great Putowa. And Putowa was particularly good in spreading the complete teaching of the Sutra and Tantra, and especially he started this tradition of explaining the 6 major texts. Which is Nenjurcho Besa, the Bodhisattva Bhumi, and Sutra Alamkara, and the birth stories of the Buddha, and the collection of teachings of the Buddha, the Som, and the Shiksha Samuchaya, Laptu, and Chonjuk. So these 6 texts, he started this tradition of hearing, studying, and listening on these 6 major texts, which His Holiness gave in the temple some years back. And I had the fortune to listen to that teaching also. So in this way, his main focus was meditation and practice on bodhicitta. And he used to have more than 2,000 students. And all of them were not just students of Dharma in name, but who were genuine seekers of freedom and liberation from samsara. And one of the prominent students was Chekhawa, who also possessed all the lineages. And he had many great students, out of which one of the great students was Chekhawa, who is the writer of this text. And in those days, the students, the prominent students, were given different tasks of looking after different sections of teaching. So Chekhawa was given the task of particularly spreading the lineage of bodhicitta. So that's why this teaching becomes particularly important. And in the case of Chekhawa, it is said that His family belonged to Nyingmaba. But he gradually undertook many of the Kadamba practices also. And he was widely read and had many teachers. But he always felt something was missing. That I know all this, but still I need something, you see. So then finally, to make a long story short, he met this teacher, Chekhawa, who was one of, as I said, prominent teacher. And first he heard certain part of the teaching and he was not so happy with that. But then this Geshe Lhakdor was going for circumambulation around the temple. Then he immediately approached him and put a mat there and said, "Great teacher, can you please sit down? I have some questions." So he sat down and then he said, he cited 2 lines, which was actually from the Edwardses by Geshe Lhakdor. He said, "These teachings for me were very effective because I very often get problems of being harassed by people, not finding a place to stay, things like that. So whenever I think about these 2 lines, it is really, I found it very useful. But I want to find the authentic source of these teachings." And then he said, "Of course, it's up to you whether you want to practice or not, but this is a real authentic teaching. And the source is in Nagarjuna's Ratanavali." So he continued to explain like that. Then he found, okay, this is the path now. This is the path. This is what I found. So then he spent many years doing the mind training practice. And then, as you will read in the very end of the text, Anyway, at the very end of the text, which is unfortunately missing here in the English version. Anyway, in the end he says, now, even if the death comes, I have nothing to regret. So that's what I wanted to point out. He was so satisfied and fulfilled with his practice that he said, okay, now I have nothing to worry, nothing to regret, even if the death comes to me. So that's a little bit of the story of this great master.